And good evening. Welcome to Leading Questions. I'm Julie Novkov, the Interim Dean of Rockefeller College of Public Affairs and Policy. Rockefeller is thrilled to be a sponsor for tonight's conversation with New York State Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins. It's exciting to have a majority leader here at this moment in New York's history. Never has the state experienced such depth in women's leadership at the top, with women serving as governor, attorney general, and Senate Majority Leader. It's a great moment for us to gather and reflect on leadership through engagement with our wonderful guest. Joining me this evening is UAlbany President Havidán Rodríguez, who will be interviewing the Majority Leader in just a few moments. Good evening, President Rodríguez, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Julie. It's great to be here.
Thank you. I would also like to welcome UAlbany Student President Abdullah Goudiaby, who will be introducing our special guest.
Thank you so much, Dean Novkov. In just her first year as Senate Majority Leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins led the most productive legislative session in state history. She has been widely recognized in local and state government and championed for progressive action. In 2012, she became the first woman, an African-American woman, to lead a New York State legislative conference. In 2019, she shattered the glass ceiling when her peers elected her as temporary president and majority leader of the state Senate. Majority Leader Stewart-Cousins oversaw the passage of historic and transformative legislation on issues such as voting reforms, gun safety, women's rights and healthcare, immigration and dreamers, the LGBTQ+ community, the justice system, and sexual harassment in the workplace. Under her leadership, the Senate majority passed the most comprehensive and aggressive climate change legislation in the nation, and the strongest tenant protections and affordable housing package in state history. First elected to the state Senate in 2006, Senator Stewart-Cousins currently represents Greenburgh, Scarsdale, and parts of White Plains, New Rochelle, and Yonkers. She previously served as a Westchester County legislator and director of community affairs for the city of Yonkers. Andrea Stewart-Cousins earned her bachelor's degrees of science from Pace University, her teaching credentials in business education from Lehman College, and her master's of public administration from Pace University. She's a proud member of Pi Alpha Alpha, a public administration honor society. Before entering public service, Andrea Stewart-Cousins worked in a variety of professions, including customer service, sales and marketing, journalism, personnel, and as a teacher for Yonkers Public Schools. Senate Majority Leader Stewart-Cousins resides in Yonkers, was married to the late Thomas Cousins, and has 3 children and 6 grandchildren. Welcome to UAlbany Senate Majority Leader Stewart-Cousins, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Abdullah, and welcome, Majority Leader.
Thank you so much. You did a great job there, Mr. Goudiaby. Thank you so very much for being who you are and where you are. And it's really a privilege to be here with all of you. I get a lot of great interns and sometimes employees from UAlbany and Rockefeller. So I am very, very happy to be part of this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. Uh-oh. Jeez.
You can send them anytime during the study in your hometown with your question. Please go ahead. We are going to share your questions with Majority Leader Stewart-Cousins a little bit later on. And I want to let you know that the chat will not be enabled during this program. Well, Majority Leader, we always begin our leading questions with an audience poll to get a sense of where our students, faculty, and staff stand on the question that we will be exploring with our guest. So here is tonight's poll question. What is the best way to develop leadership skills? So audience members, please select one answer and one answer only. You know, there are a lot to sort through there, but hopefully there's one that will grab your eye. Give people maybe just another couple of seconds here. Looks like we're having a slight Wi-Fi issue. We've had Wi-Fi drama on campus today. All right, we're going to have to return to that a little bit later. So I'm going to step away here and hand things over to President Rodriguez to conduct the interview, but I will be back during the second half of the program for the audience Q&A, and perhaps by that time I'll be able to give you the results of the poll. So I will hand it over to President Rodriguez, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Julie. We appreciate your leadership. And Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, thank you so very much for joining us today at the University at Albany, although via Zoom, but we certainly appreciate your presence here. And welcome to Leading Questions. First of all, let me say that we are very, very proud and impressed with your leadership. In very complex times and difficult times, you've navigated this ship and you've maintained a steady pace. So thank you so very much for your outstanding leadership in the great state of New York.
Thank you so much, President Rodriguez. It is just, as I said, a real pleasure to be here with you and to share some insights that probably people wouldn't think about leaders and how these things come to pass.
Thank you. And I'm sure that our students and the audience out there will appreciate many of the insights that you have. So talking about leading questions, I think we should get started. And as Abdullah mentioned, as he read your bio, trailblazer is a term commonly used to describe you. And for many good reasons. So what qualities must one possess in order to achieve such a status as trailblazer?
I mean, I think one has to be, at the right place at the right time and wind up being the first to go down that untrodden path before. And, that sounds like all of us all the time, right? I mean, we're always somehow faced with maybe opportunities or decisions that nobody we knew had. And you think about, well, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? And so sometimes you become an unwitting trailblazer. I usually explain to people a little bit about who I am so that they could see a lot of things. First of all, that sometimes you don't even plan these things, and sometimes circumstances thrust you into a variety of positions. But I was born in New York City. I was born in the public housing projects, Amsterdam houses to be exact, to my parents, Burl and Bob. Burl and Bob were in a generation of African Americans that saw very little in the way of advantages. My dad was a World War II Purple Heart, Bronze Star hero who served in a segregated army, came home to a segregated country and was deprived of the benefits as Black soldiers were of the GI Bill and those kinds of things. My mom typed 100 words a minute. And because they didn't really hire Black people in corporations, she wasn't able to work in a corporation. My mom did get a job in the Corporation Council in New York City, where she was able to ascend the ladder because they had civil service exams, and she was excellent at her job. But my dad, worked in many low-level places always. Western Electric was one of those places, part of the then Bell system, and always they focused us on faith and family and work ethic. But as I said, they did not have the opportunity. So I didn't see myself in any of the things that a journalist at that time, growing up in the 60s, there weren't really any Black journalists until at the height of the civil rights movement. And then all of a sudden someone said, oh, might be good to have more people of color covering these things. But certainly politics was never part of what I thought I would ever do, because again, never saw anybody like me who actually was succeeding. Although, you know, there was a Barbara Jordan in Congress, there were some very few African-American, very few African-American women, but in my life, because of just trying to do day-to-day stuff, I didn't see what I was to become. So they said, unfortunately, because of the lack of opportunity, almost anything I did would have wound up being trailblazing. But I do stand on the shoulders of great people who came before me, including my parents.
I certainly understand, and you have a great history, great background, great experience, and at the end of the day, it's built on the strong foundation of our families, right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
That is critical. So there's always been this discussion about, you know, a leader's born or leaders actually made. So in your view, do you consider yourself a natural born leader, or would you say that you learned to lead through your personal and professional experience? And maybe it's a combination of both.
It probably is. You know, I remember when I was in elementary school and I was called on to do something and I spoke and my voice scared me. I was so surprised that it was so strong and loud. It scared me. And so and again, I grew up at a time which I am so happy that your students are not living this time, but where I was not expected to do much. In fact, I was told, my parents were told that, you know, I wasn't college material. So, you know, because there was just, as far as they were concerned, really not a place in any sort of hierarchy for people like me or women. So to hear my voice, and I was stunned. And so I would really not raise my hand that much because I realized the way my voice boomed, people would turn around and look at me and expect me to say something profound. And I felt intimidated by it. It even got worse. By the time I was in my teenage years, I was, you know, trying out for a talent show with my friends. We all like, you know, 60s music, Motown, and so on and so forth. Lived in the projects, big echo in the halls, and you know, everybody sounded great. And I went to audition, and all of a sudden, I lost my voice. And because I was frightened, I had a credible case of stage fright. And I was so ashamed and so embarrassed that I did not speak in public again until about 20 years later. So I had decided that I was never going to put myself in this position again, and better to work quietly behind the scenes and not really out front, because I never wanted to be embarrassed again. As I matured, you know, as I started really doing a lot of self-examination, a lot of introspection, I've always been rooted in, you know, a sense of there being something greater than myself. So I had a very strong, you know, spiritual root, but I just felt like I could be better, and that I really had to sort of work on this. And maybe I didn't want to be always behind the scenes. Again, it was comfortable because women were always behind the scenes. You know, I mean, the men were out front and women were running everything, but they weren't actually visible. So, you know, it could have been that I probably would have been able to sort of coast, but there was something inside of me that required more of myself than what I could have settled for. And so I just kept pushing myself, and you know, things started happening, and I started speaking in front of people again. You know, I like to teach. You can't do that if you're not willing to talk to people.
Exactly.
So, but it was a gradual opening. I learned meditation. I just did a lot of things to try and improve my inner calm so that I could present a better picture to myself and the world.
You know, you just mentioned a few words that many of us as people of color constantly hear. And those words were, "You're not college material." Those were the same words that I heard. And so I graduated from high school with a background in auto mechanics because I wasn't college material.
That's
Now, a few decades later, I think we both proved those words wrong, right? But what does it take for those students that are right now listening to us? What do you say? What are the tips that you recommend in terms of their professional leadership journey, how to engage and how to be successful in that regard?
Well, again, I'm happy to know that you two overcame that, and look at you, the head of a university. I mean, honestly. So I think that what we both can teach everybody is that there's always going to be somebody, sometimes the whole society, that will tell you that you are not worthy and you can't achieve something. So that's where it goes back to you having the relationship with yourself and really giving yourself benchmarks, not something necessarily that's extraordinary that, you know, would be impossible, but at least give yourself some benchmarks and some goals to reach for, and assume the best about yourself. Surround yourself with people who will encourage you. Yes, you know, everybody, you know, can also tell you the truth, but you need to have people around you who support your highest self and your highest aspirations. So the first thing, please get to know yourself. Where are your weaknesses? You know, don't be afraid to confront your weaknesses. Don't be afraid, period, to strive to become better at what you do. And don't listen to the people who would have you not try anything. I mean, my history is really, again, I just so people know, the first time I ran for Senate in 2004, I lost by 18 votes. I lost in the longest unresolved race in New York State history. In February of the following year, they told me I lost by 18 votes.
Wow.
And, you know, the idea was I was running against somebody who was a 20+ year incumbent. He had a family where there were 16 siblings. They had all been in politics or government or union heads or something all over the state, the county, and the city where I lived. And they were all married to people who had, you can only imagine. And, you know, people told me that I could not possibly win in the Senate race against this incumbent, who at that point was the deputy majority leader in his conference. And yet I knew inside that A, I had something to bring, and B, that I could. And that certainty in my ability and the promise of my getting the opportunity to lead is what kept me moving. And of course, in February, when they told me I lost by 18 votes, you know, and then the question was I going to run again? Because the very first time, you know, they never took me seriously, although I took me seriously, and people believed in me, took me seriously. But now the second time, they knew I was a serious challenge, and that upped the stakes quite a lot. But I realized even then it was going to be harder, but I weighed what I had to lose. And I knew that if I could overcome the fear of going into this fight again, I would not lose anything. If I lost, I still overcame fear and I built character. If I won, I overcame fear, I built character, and I had an opportunity to really do something more to help people. So I assessed what I thought were the various outcomes, and overcoming fear and building character, to me, is worth going into the arena and fighting.
And that's great advice. And what you've proven is that if you're persistent, you're consistent, you're committed, and you work hard, you're gonna be a trailblazer, right? That's what it takes.
Exactly.
Right. So going back to your when you started your I know you did your undergraduate degree and your MPA at Pace University.
Right.
Your undergraduate degree was in what field?
It was in journalism and marketing.
Okay.
And, you know, again, I was an adult student. I was an unwed teenage mother. So I had to leave school. You know, I got 1 year of college under my belt because my parents didn't believe that I wasn't college material. And they just, you know, really tried to reinforce that I did have the intelligence to do college. And, you know, I was the first one in my family to go to college. And, you know, I said, when I left because, you know, I had my son, I worked for quite some time, you know, before I was able to return to school. So I was happy to go back. I realized that the opportunities, again, I worked in the Bell system. That's why I was in customer service. At that time too, if you're a woman, you would only be in either customer service or you would be an operator. And it was a class action suit that allowed for me to be promoted into marketing and sales, where ultimately I did meet my husband, but it was the class action suit that allowed for that ascension. And so I was, you know, making good money. In fact, between where they were going to relegate every woman and every person of color and where I was able to ascend was a $20,000 difference. You know, just in that promotion. I had a company car. All of a sudden, you know, raising my son became a lot easier. And so, you know, I mean, there's just so many layers to this. But I also realized that without my degree, I would be limited, you know, and I mean, I could have, I guess, stayed there forever, but, you know, I really didn't want to. And I still did want to be a journalist. So, I decided to go back to school at night. And so mostly all of my undergraduate work and graduate work happened while I was, you know, working, raising my kids. And Pace University was very near where I worked. I had become a county legislator in 1996, and Pace had a White Plains campus when I was in the Bell system. Even before that, in the 70s, Pace had, you know, the downtown New York City campus. So it seemed like wherever I was, that university was there, and they were very welcoming in terms of experience and so on. So that's, you know, that's what I did. And interestingly enough, I thought that I would not be a journalist until I graduated, and it turned out I got a job with a local newspaper based on coverage of in my college newspaper. I covered Geraldine Ferraro's campaign to be vice president on election night in New York City. And they sent me there to cover this campaign. And here I am with you know, to cover the outcome. And here I am with national and international press. And it was really exciting. And it turned out to be that piece among others that allowed me to be hired by Gannett before I graduated, and probably planted a seed in terms of politics and, you know, women in politics in that night, you know, unbeknownst to me.
So you had a very complicated and complex, sort of as a student, right? Not only were you a student, you were an employee and you were a mother, right? I mean, so this is sort of the challenges that you dealt with. So as you think back to those years, was there any particular experience or series of events that really sort of changed the way you thought about how do you move forward? Or maybe something that didn't happen that you wish now that would have happened? As our students listen to you?
You know, I think I want your students to know that, you know, these things are not neat. You know, sometimes, I mean, if you're lucky enough to have it neat, if you're lucky enough to wake up, know what you want to be, get in the right direction, have everybody encourage you, and then you show up there that is very, very incredible, and you are fortunate, but it may not be what normally happens.
Mhm.
So my whole life trajectory, frankly, as I said, I knew what I wanted to do. And even when I got into journalism, but this time I had, gotten married and had 2 more kids. And here I was trying to figure out how I was going to be, covering stories at night, covering stories on the weekend. And it didn't work. And so, I was, one of my mentors suggested that, I try teaching, which made sense. And sure enough, I walked into the classroom. My city of Yonkers was looking for substitute teachers at the time. And, I applied, and next thing I know, I had a job. And so then I started teaching. So a lot of what happened in my life was sort of working around my life circumstances. But what was always consistent was 2 things. One, I felt like I had a greater purpose, really, and that I had something to contribute to the world. And B, I wanted to be a better me. So I just kept pushing forward. And every time I pushed forward, another door would open. And then there's the decision. Do you walk through it? Do you not? And invariably, when I chose to be fearless, when I chose to do something that might have been daring or risky, but had benefits, not just for me, but for other people, invariably, I did it, and it worked out.
That's great. So I have, time flies when you're having fun, and I'm truly am enjoying this conversation. So I have time for one more question. So New York State is a very diverse state, and the Senate and the legislature, elected officials, this is a very diverse set of individuals representing their microcosm of society at large. And so you have to deal with many, many leaders with different expectations, with different needs, different constituent groups. So as the Senate Majority Leader, how do you build consensus among such diversity and divergence?
Well, when Julie put the up on the screen, those things that people thought were important to be a leader. When I looked at it, the first thing I would have said is be a good listener, because that's how you are able to A, identify what the issues are, and B, listen to enough people to realize what some of the barriers to the solutions are, and C, exhibit enough respect for everybody so that when you put it all together with them, you have a product that they all have input into, have understood the process, understood why the outcome is the way it is, and in many cases are willing to take votes on things that may not even be terribly popular in their district, but because there's a broader understanding, because people have listened, they are willing to take very, very, very difficult votes sometimes. But I have found that you listen, you respect everybody, because everybody we all bring, and I think we'll I'll just come kind of full circle that, I talk about all the difficulties that my parents face, that, obviously we're still dealing with, all kinds of things, racism, sexism, this and that. But the principles of this government and the principles of the founding democracy, those principles are extraordinary, because here we are, in leadership positions. Here these young people are ready to take their place in not only the society, but on a global stage, because not so much government change, but who was sitting in those seats changed. And they brought ideas, and they brought a vision, and they brought an understanding that the table should be broadened and that there is an opportunity for more people to contribute to what's on that table. And that's what this is about. So when we are sitting around deliberating about anything, as long as every single member knows that they're there contributing to the bounty of that table on behalf of the people who sent them there in the whole state, we can get to the right answer. And that's what I've seen.
That's great. Well, following this interview, there should be no doubt that you are indeed a trailblazer, a great leader, and an inspirational role model. So we really want to thank you for
Thank you so
everything that you continue to do. I'm going to ask Dean Julie Novkov to join us now for this segment. Julie, turn it to you.
I am back. Thank you. And thank you, Majority Leader. Your answers are both so inspiring and so practical and down to earth. It's just a wonderful combination. Unfortunately, we are not going to be able to report on that poll, but I suspect that some people who answered it might have wanted to change their answers after hearing your responses to President Rodriguez's questions. So now we are going to do a really fun part of leading questions that we always look forward to. This is our lightning round, where I'm going to pose 5 questions and ask you for quick responses. Are you ready?
I guess so.
Okay. Most valuable course you took in college?
English Lit.
Excellent.
And why? Because of the teacher. Because of the teacher. Because the teacher exposed me to literature and thoughts that I had never, ever, ever, ever dreamt of.
Yep, I had a similar experience. So last TV show that you binged on?
Binging on. I love Married at First Sight, sadly. So I don't have a lot of time to binge watch, but if I really like Married at First Sight.
Terrific.
Which I don't know if I would suggest anybody do that, but it's fascinating to watch.
Great. World leader you'd most like to meet?
World leader, I am so sorry that I never met Nelson Mandela. I really wish I had met Nelson Mandela. Trying to think contemporary world leader. I think maybe Chancellor Merkel might be interesting to me.
I imagine she would be quite interesting to meet.
Yeah.
A superpower you would have if you could choose any one?
I want the power to give people I think I'd love the power to give people like some sort of emotional intelligence, so, at least compassion, at least get people to see that we really are not all that different.
I imagine that would make your job a little bit easier.
It would. I don't want, maybe that was self-serving. Okay, that's true.
And the final one, favorite spot in the New York State Capitol building?
The favorite spot. I spent so much time in my Capitol, in my office, but my conference room in that office is fascinating to me because so there's a big conference room for everybody. And then I have an office conference room. And in there are the pictures of every single president and majority leader of the Senate that came before me. And I'm the only one like me. And it is absolutely fascinating to have every single portrait of every single guy, all of whom, with the exception of one, was a white male, and then have me. I always fantasize that when the lights go out, all these portraits are saying, how did she get here? What's she doing here? And it kind of makes me laugh, but that is my favorite spot.
Wonderful. That is actually a beautiful segue into the next segment of our program. We have a few questions that we got in advance that I would like to ask you. And the first one is, what obstacles have you faced in life as a woman of color?
Well, I think I started out telling you that. You know, my opportunities as they were presented to me were extremely limited. And because people didn't have faith in our intellect or our abilities, the offerings were very, very limited. You know, I have to say, even going to high school, you know, when I obviously was told we weren't college material, my brother went to shop. So I understand President Rodriguez saying that he was in auto mechanics, because that's kind of where you were steered. But, you know, the fact that I figured, you know, I could be like a, you know, I could be a secretary, I could be a nurse, but they were very, very limited. So I'm sorry.
No, I think that's great. That's a terrific answer, and one that I hope has everybody thinking about that and remembering that history and recognizing the way
And now, as I say, the sky is the limit. The sky is absolutely the limit. And now when I go into teach, you know, when I spend time with classes and I ask girls, you know, what they want to be, the hands shoot up and they want to be everything. They know they can be everything now. And that's what people like, you know, all of us, you know, me, have to make sure that those opportunities and that encouragement is always there. And then, you know, the big choice is, do I spend my time doing this or that? And then also someone like me will tell you that you can be this. And, you know, you don't have to do one thing for your whole life. You can do a lot of things. There's an evolution and you should just be part of it.
Terrific. That kind of feeds into a question I'm seeing that came in through the chat, which is, what explicit advice would you provide to students who are thinking about pursuing a career in government and politics?
Do what so many of my, you know, pay attention, work on campaigns, work on issues. Sometimes there's something happening right in your area that you could make a difference by just articulating or organizing. And, you know, come apply for an internship. I have many, again, people who have worked for me who have, you know, come as interns. I have somebody who is going to University of Albany right now, who's working in my office, Brittany, who's an integral part of my workplace. So the thing is, like, just involve yourself, go work on a campaign, you know, for somebody that you believe in. Just don't limit yourself. I think if we leave tonight, leaving people with nothing else but the idea that don't limit yourself, don't be small. You know, if you want to do something, pursue it and believe in yourself and your ability, and you'll be amazed. The things, you know, things will fall into place. So,
Julie, can I jump in here?
Sure.
Just to follow up on that. So what would you tell to students, you know, the past few years in terms of politics have been very turbulent, right, and concerning. Right. And so there might be students in our audience who are interested in becoming an elected official, or just, you know, joining this increasing number of leaders in politics, but they're a little bit concerned, a little bit afraid of what they're getting into. What would be your advice to them, Senate Majority Leader?
So the reality is that whether you're involved in politics or not, politics is involved with you. You know, I mean, that's just the fact. And no matter what it is you do, politics is involved. And, you know, my whole evolution from going from this to that, to this to that, I got into politics, which I never really explained. I got into politics when we moved to the city of Yonkers, only to find out that the city of Yonkers was being sued or for being segregated. And here I am, families, and the kids are going to be bused, and I've got, you know, a lot of the community who are actually threatening our lives because they don't want to desegregate. And in the 1990s, 1992, the city of Yonkers in New York was having a pitched desegregation battle. And there were 3 people running for mayor. Only one was interested in desegregating the city. And so I'm still working and so on and so forth. I had a friend who was running to be the first Black woman city council person, still works for me, Simmer Brandon. And during that tumultuous time, you know, I helped her because I had marketing sales, this and that. I helped her. When she got through the primary, then we went and helped the mayor who was willing to desegregate. And he invited me to join his administration. That's how not in a classroom right now, because I joined his administration after I helped him win. I wasn't trying to do that, but that's what happened. And it was my job to bring policies to the people who were terrified about desegregation, but also bring people who had been left out because of segregation to the table. And when I walked in that door, I realized I watched my whole life. You know, my dad's segregated Army experience was the government that segregated him. It was the government that said he couldn't have GI Bill privileges, but it was also the government that gave us public housing. It was the government that gave us public education. It was the government that desegregated, that gave me an opportunity in my workplace. It was the government that my mother was able to achieve some dignity with her job through, you know, civil service exam. And ultimately it was the government that told Yonkers they had to desegregate. And here I was. So I realized for the first time the power of government and what the role had played in my life. So if I'm going to be there, then let me make sure that I tear down barriers so that other people aren't going through this needlessly. But again, it's the government, it's the people who are there. So even if you don't think you belong in politics, you're in it. So if you believe in something, then, you know, be part of it, please. We need you.
That's a wonderful answer. And it kind of ties in the way you've discussed all the battles that you fought. What advice would you give to someone to get through the hard days when the negativity and doubt from other people have reached you and maybe made you doubt yourself and your goals? Is that something that you've struggled with, and what strategies have you used to overcome it?
I said, you know, I really, you know, I am a person, again, who is deeply rooted spiritually. I do meditate every day. I do pray. I try and keep in the center, and, try not to, get too excited about anything if it's going great, or sad about anything if it's going badly, because everything changes all the time. And I just, like I said, I did not have the vision to see what I'd be doing, where I'd be, who I'd be talking to, the opportunities that have come my way. I had no vision for this. So the only thing I can do on a day-to-day basis is, again, try and prepare myself, whether it's, again, intellectually, do my homework, get the degree you need to get for the job you think you want, but mostly believe in yourself and know that, I say it very simply, if you do the right thing for the right reason, the right things happen. It really can be as simple as that. So if it looks bad today, like I said, my losing by 18 votes in 2004 could have been the end of, who knows. But, I didn't let it, because I knew that I knew that I could win this. And who knew that I would become the first woman leader in the history of New York State? Never could have imagined, but yet here I am. So believe in yourself, get people to positively reinforce you. And, if you have a goal, do what you can to achieve it. And if one door closes, another door will open.
Speaking of goals, we have a few policy questions for you coming from our audience. One of our pre-submitted questions was whether the New York Health Act is going to make it forward for a floor vote this session.
We are working on, trying to figure that out. Like I said, there's nothing that, again, I think is on a higher level of importance than our health. And after this experience with COVID and, the tragic loss of so many lives, and of course, if there's anybody in the audience who has suffered from a loss due to COVID, my condolences, my sympathies, but, we take this extremely seriously. So, we're trying to work through things because, again, people do know that change is hard. And when you talk about something like healthcare, which, in many cases are life and death matters, you have to try and get it right. We're trying to get it right. So we're continuing to work on that.
Thank you. You have talked about your experience growing up in public housing. I would imagine that makes that an issue of interest to you, something of concern. How important do you think it is for New York State to provide more affordable housing? And what do you see the state doing in the future to expand access to housing?
Well, the first thing I want to say that under my leadership in 2019, when the tenant laws expired, we created the most pro-tenant housing laws that do not expire anymore that has ever happened in the history of New York State. So we knew that by strengthening the laws protecting tenants and by stopping this kind of merry-go-round every 2 years or every few years that, these things expire, that we were sending a message that we wanted to invest in the people of New York, and we wanted to invest in keeping housing affordable in New York. So that's number one. And today, actually, I just had a meeting with some affordable housing, people who have developed it and so on and so forth, because my goal, my objective is to really create, Mitchell Lama, which is an affordable housing program that for the most part, has expired in many places. Mitchell and Lama were state legislators, and their vision of like some kind of affordable housing program, decades ago is as important, then and now as it was then. So we are trying to figure out a way where we can restart a real program that can be effective statewide, that says to New York and to New Yorkers, once again, that we believe in affordable housing. We all need it. Every community needs it. They don't want their kids leaving their communities. Even in my richest communities, they want, housing that's affordable for their kids who are coming out of school, or their seniors who are, no longer wanting to or can no longer upkeep, a big home or whatever. But every community needs it. We need it on lots of different levels. And so our conference, incredible focus on affordability and trying to make sure that it is a statewide initiative. So
thank you so much. So you're here at UAlbany, where we're all thinking about SUNY and what we've been going through. So this question, we've seen a drop in state support for SUNY over the last 2 decades, and the tuition burden has increased on our already stressed students. Is there a way to increase state support and realize that investing in our students is investing in our state's future?
Well, we did more this past, and we did more this past budget. Thank you. And please tell your students what we've done in terms of investing in SUNY, CUNY, and education in general, because one of the things that again, motivated me to run when I ran in 2004 was this education piece. There was something called a campaign for fiscal equity, which parents and advocates had brought suit against New York State decades ago, saying that they were underfunding the schools in especially poor neighborhoods. Black and brown kids were being underfunded. The parents sued, they won. The state did not pay the bill. They appealed, they lost. They did not pay the bill because it was just too expensive to pay. And the expense that it's cost generations of young people who were deprived of this funding did not seem to be the issue. And that was one of the reasons that I was motivated to do this. And so this year, in the face of COVID, in the face of looking at what we all, well, maybe not all of us, but certainly many of us realized had been inequities that had been long unaddressed. The speaker, his conference, my conference decided we were going to be really serious about it. And we looked at all education. We looked at universal pre-K, which isn't universal. It was mostly in New York City. And we decided we were going to up our investment in universal pre-K so that it will in 3 years truly be universal. And that's what we did on that level. For the CFE, we figured out a 3-year strategy to pay what's due and to keep school districts who are on the brink or doing well, still well-funded, while we really focus on making sure that the inequities, whether it's in technology, resources, whatever, gets corrected 3 years. And the same thing with our higher ed, TAP gap, to making sure, we are investing in our campuses. I've gone to, SUNY thank yous, actually, because of the unprecedented amount we've invested in equal opportunity and like I said, we're trying to close the TAP gap. We want to support our professors and the resources, and we have a 3-year plan for that as well as upping the amount of the TAP awards that we are giving to students. So we are trying to approach this because when all else fails, like I said, education, as far as I'm concerned, is the great equalizer. And for our conference, it is a pre-K through 16 endeavor. So you got friends.
We really, really do appreciate that. That means so much to us, to our campus in particular. And I just so much appreciate that you're going all the way from pre-K through higher ed. So
that's right.
You're getting a little emotional here. Before I turn you over to the president,
I don't want to make you cry before I go, but the only reason
and about budgeting, I know.
No, yeah, right. I mean, come on. But the only reason I'm spending an hour is because what you do is very important. I spend half of my life in Albany, so I wanted to spend time talking to the people of UAlbany, just because you're half of my life every year. So thank you.
Well, before I turn you over to the president, I just want to read a comment from Brittany, who's here tonight. She says she doesn't have a specific question, but I work for the leader and would like to let her know that I have tears in my eyes watching her, and I'm so inspired by who she is and what she's done. I'm sure she's speaking for a lot of us tonight.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Brittany. You inspire me too. Brittany won't tell you all the good things that she winds up doing for me. So thanks, Brittany.
Well, I think we are almost out of time, but before we conclude, Senate Majority Leader, any closing thoughts or remarks that you want to leave with our students before we depart?
Believe in yourself, know yourself, believe in yourself. Everything's not going to be easy. Everything is not going to be the way you think it should be. But again, if you just do the very best you can at what you are trying to achieve, you will make a remarkable difference, not only for yourself, but for others. And, pay it back too. Once you realize that you are at a place where you can give a little of yourself, turn around, reach back and pull somebody else up, lift as you climb. It'll really, really make the world a better place.
And that is excellent advice. Senate Majority Leader, I want to thank you today for sharing with us your personal journey, your insights, and your inspirational story, right? I think we're all behind Brittany. We endorse your inspirational role model for the state of New York. And also, I want to thank you on behalf of the University at Albany for all that you do for higher education in the state of New York, your great impact, the impact that you have had throughout the years and that you will continue to have. Once again, thank you so very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
So for our audience, we also want to thank you for joining us. And Senate Majority Leader, I'm sure that as Brittany, you will see many other legislative interns from the University at Albany in the Capitol, because that's one of our signature programs. And we are very, very proud of the work that our students do with you and others throughout the state Capitol. So all I say is, please come back again to UAlbany, maybe next time in person.
In person.
You are always welcome at UAlbany. And given that you spend half of your life in Albany, that we would like to say that UAlbany, the University at Albany, is also your home.
That's right.
So
it is.
As we say in Spanish, mi casa es su casa.
Es su casa. Gracias por todo. Thank you, President
You're
Rodríguez.
quite welcome. Muchísimas gracias. And before we conclude, I want to remind everyone that Tuesday, November 2nd is Election Day. So please be sure to vote. Also, UAlbany's Rockefeller College of Public Affairs and Policy is co-sponsoring an Albany 2021 mayoral candidate online forum via Zoom tomorrow evening at Wednesday, October 20th at 6:30. So please join us for the mayoral candidate online forum. And for more information on how you can watch this forum, please go to albany.edu/Rockefeller. Again, I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody for today's leading questions. Our facilitator, Dean Julie Novkov, thank you so much. The staff at Rockefeller College, SA President Abdullah Gudiabi, and the Student Association, the Office of Government and Community Relations, the Office for Public Engagement, and UAlbany's IT field support staff. And thank you all for joining us tonight in Leading Questions. Muchísimas gracias. And as always, please, please, please stay safe, stay healthy, and the Senate Majority Leader would agree, always stay engaged. Thank you all so very much. Thank you, Senate Majority Leader. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you so much. Good night. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Good night.